Focus on love. Love what's in focus. Aim for above because the ceiling's bogus. Focus on love. Love what's in focus. Aim for above because the ceiling is bogus. Focus on love. Love what's in focus.
So this show is called Famous Rapper Convos. I'm David Prorock, and you are AJ John. Would you like to say hello to the world?
Absolutely. World, hello. I'm actually I was a computer science major in college, and like the first program we always do is hello world. So hello world.
Mm-hmm. Totally, yeah. I actually studied computer science. I don't know if you know that.
Oh, sweet. I didn't. That's cool.
Yeah, I majored in computer science at the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign.
Mm-hmm.
Where'd you go to school?
Sweet, man. I went to Georgia Tech.
Oh, nice. Do you still do like computer science, or are you just doing music?
So I'm doing both at the moment. I graduated in May, and then I'm starting my full-time job in September.
Nice. That's really cool. Cool. So the question that I always ask everybody is if you have like 3 minutes to tell your entire story of your artist story of how you got started into music and like all the places that you've been and all the things that you've done and all the things that you've learned that have gotten you from like where you started to where you are today. What does that story sound like?
Wow. Okay. So I guess it really starts. I took piano lessons from a young age. Like I started taking piano lessons around the age of 5. But I guess the first time that music became something that I was like deeply devoted to and passionate about was around, I'd say about 4th grade. Earlier, there was this Christian band called the Newsboys, and they had a music video that I saw, and they were all like on top of an elephant playing instruments together. It was a really weird video, but it was the coolest thing to me at the time. And then I got reminded of that band later on about 4th grade. And I noticed the drummer was having so much fun. He was like making all these crazy faces and constantly showing off. And that made me want to pick up a pair of sticks and start drumming. So I eventually saw them in a show and he gave me some sticks, which he signed. That was like the coolest thing to me as a kid.
What?
Yeah, it was awesome. Fun fact, I actually used those sticks, and because that was all I had, the signatures ended up kind of fading away as a result. But anyways, yeah, so I used those sticks and I would just beat on whatever I could. It started off with the sofa, pretty much the sofa entirely for 4th grade. And then I was like, I want a drum set. My parents don't really know if I'm really into this drumming thing. So I made a drum set out of pots and pans and shoe boxes. And I would use that in a little room, and I had a computer set up with big speakers, and I would just play music through that and then sit down and play drums on the shoe boxes and the pots and pans.
That's awesome.
So that kind of started to take off from there. I eventually joined the school band, got my first snare drum, and I joined percussion. And then eventually my parents were convinced, like, okay, he's into music, let's get him a drum set. And that's kind of where drumming started for me. And I've been playing drums since then. I'd say if you were to ask me like what instrument I play, I'd say I would tell you I'm a drummer. Ended up doing high school band, joining college. Then shortly after that, about 6th, 7th grade, I started fiddling around with my old dad's nylon string acoustic guitar. It was pretty beat up. It only had about 2 strings on it, but I loved melodies and I loved singing. And so I would constantly try to like pick out different tunes that I could play on that guitar. And to make a long story short, I played on that until eventually my parents were like, okay, why don't we get him an actual guitar? And so I ended up getting a guitar and a bass and continuing to play along that. And that side of music sort of cultivated itself throughout childhood, through high school. I started recording my own covers, spent a lot of time making covers on SoundCloud, and then wrote my first song with my friends about senior year, and then played through college. And that's pretty much how I came to this spot as far as like my rock influence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was about 3 minutes. So good timing. Wow, that's really interesting. So you've been really into music like your entire life, primarily drums, but I mean, I saw that video, you played like every instrument.
Mm-hmm.
And so it started with drums, and then you learned guitar in like 8th grade, and you play piano and you sing.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
When did each of those start?
So piano started at the age of 5. That was like the first thing that I ever learned, although it didn't necessarily, that in and of itself didn't spark an interest in piano until about much later. Now singing, actually, I started that in the school choir at about age 3 and kept up with that through school eventually I joined the Georgia Boy Choir, which is they're a boy choir in Georgia.
Nice.
But they mostly sing choral classical music.
Uh-huh.
And with them, I kind of started singing more, meeting other people that like to sing. And with them, we started touring the world. So every summer we'd go on a tour to different
Oh, wow.
countries. Went to China, England. My favorite tour was with them was to Spain. I really loved that place. And so with them, we kind of got to share music with so many different people. And that's kind of how singing started. And it's interesting because I play rock music, but I had my entire childhood was playing rock music at home, playing concert band here, and then singing like a classical choir.
Mm-hmm.
And yet all three of
Nice.
those things sort of created the sound that I have now.
That's awesome. Yeah. It seems like you've gone really deep in several different music areas.
Mm-hmm.
And you started like singing when you were 3. So like you don't even really know what life is like without music.
Pretty much, yeah. Like it's hard for me to imagine not doing this for one, especially now during COVID. Like I need to play music to keep myself sane in a certain way. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so it's a really good outlet for me, and I hope that other people can sort of listen to it and kind of it can become their outlet too.
Yeah, like through empathy.
Exactly, exactly.
Nice. Awesome. Wow, that's really, really cool. I think you might be like the most musically involved person that I've ever met. So congrats.
I appreciate that.
And so, but like, how does computer science fit into all this? What similarities do you find between writing code and making music?
This is
So they're both
interesting.
creating.
They are both
You
creating.
mentioned that. I
Hmm.
also do both, by the way, and
Sure.
that I find that very relatable. Like I consider myself to be like a creator, like in the more abstract, and like so I create like websites and apps, and I also create music, and it's like the same kind of like energy goes into both, at least when I do them.
Yeah, that's interesting. Creating the solution and creating the product is a really great way for like people to come together. And I see that a lot both in music and in software development. Like especially when you're on a team of people, I compare that to like being in a band. As we
Hmm.
go through the process of building software, we realize like, oh, some people are better at this thing. Some people are better at backend development. You're much better at designing a good UI. And we sort of figure out like what each person's like proper skill sets are and where they can be utilized to create the best possible product. And that's kind of the biggest parallel I see between the two things, especially when you're working with other people. Writing a song and working in a band, you've got to make sure that you've got people that are able to be the best versions of themselves in each of their individual instruments.
Yeah,
Mhm.
100%. Yeah, and it's like a team creating like a product and then reaching customers is like similar to a band creating music and then reaching fans.
Exactly. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, totally. I agree with that. And that's also how I view like my own music. You're making a product, the video is like the product, and you're trying to find people that would get value from that product.
Exactly.
The next question I have is, if you were to look forward like 12 months from now, where do you see your music going?
Hmm. So I think first thing, I want to write more music. Period. That's kind of the primary thing. And through no matter what else I'm doing in terms of my job and all that, I want to keep creating more music on my own. I've got a lot of ideas that date back even to high school. Like the album that I made is almost half of it is songs I started in high school and then continued in college. And
Mm,
I've got more ideas that I'm sitting on. And so I want to basically make sure that all of those kind of get out there for one. Two, I guess from more of a business perspective, I do want to sort of work on expanding my own brand and marketing myself a little bit better. That's something that I struggle with a lot. And I think a lot of other musicians struggle because we want to focus on the content and on the creativity behind it. I can't say exactly what that looks like, but I want to figure out what that looks like, if that makes sense.
yeah,
Yeah. And then I guess lastly, at some point we're going to get through this pandemic, whether it's a couple months from now or a couple years from now, I don't know. But regardless, I want to start doing shows for people, whether it's on in a call like this over Zoom or virtually, or whether it's in person with people. I want to start giving a live performance experience to people.
totally. Yep, that makes sense. And it sounds like it's definitely that creator side coming out where it's like what you just want to keep creating, making more
Yeah,
songs, making shows, making content for people.
Hmm.
Do you have like any metrics that you think about when it comes to your music? Some example metrics could be
Hmm.
number of fans, number of views, number of listeners, number of songs, number of albums. Like, is there any primary metric that you try to drive in the next 12 months?
Partially number of listeners and like followers and stuff like that, but more than that, engagement. If I get 5,000 fans in the next year, but I only really see like 60 or 70 of them talking to me or like interacting with, I wouldn't prefer that so much as if I had like 100 fans that I got to know all of them, and I felt like I was really giving those people direct value, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, primarily, it sounds like you're primarily working the bottom of the funnel. You want to get those like intimate fans that um, you have like a direct relationship with.
100%. And I think the important thing is that once you're able to cultivate those dedicated like small number of fans, they'll start telling their friends and start telling other people like, "Hey, you should come check him out. He's really good." And then I think hopefully at least that's kind of how it'll sort of how the word can get out and how things can grow from there.
Hmm. Awesome. How do you view collaboration when it comes to your music? Like in your video, you were the only one. There's like 5 versions of you playing all the instruments. Did you collaborate with anyone on that project, or did you make all the music, all the video, all the mixing, all the mastering, all the editing?
Hmm. So from a songwriting perspective and from like what the instruments you heard were, that was entirely me for that specific song. I'm starting to realize, sort of like what we talked about earlier, where we have to kind of like realize what our strengths are and where we can contribute best. My strengths are as a player and as a songwriter. At the time of making the album, I wasn't very good at mixing.
Hmm.
So I got in touch with a guy named Greg Hendler, and he did all the mixes on this album for me. And I think that really took the whole project to the next level. Yep.
Awesome. Yeah, that makes sense. Mixing is very important, especially in modern music. Like the mix is almost like what the thing is.
Yeah.
Like there's good music, but if you're not mixing better than ever before, then like it's not going to be the best song.
If I were to like talk to myself when I first started out, you don't need good gear to be good at mixing. Like as long as you know what you're doing, you can mix it well. I've invested so much money in like guitars and drums and whatever when I should have been investing it in getting my mixes to sound good.
Mm, yeah,
Mhm.
that makes a lot of sense. Could you tell me more about your album? What's it
Yeah,
called? Did it already come out? Or is it
sure. Yeah,
coming
it
out?
came out. It came out June 22nd. It's called "Till the End of Time." The general theme of the songs is sort of figuring yourself out as a person, going through your starting point and sort of wondering like, where am I going? What am I doing? What's gonna happen to me along the way? Some of the common themes that you hear on the album. I've got one song called "Legacy." That one's purely about like what am I doing at the end of the road? Like, what does life look like for me? I've got another song called "Take It Back" and another song called "Show You Who I Am." And those kind of talk more about like I look back on my life and there are so many things that have happened that I'm like, wow, what if I could have done that differently? What would this change? Or am I really happy with the way that I did things? And then you think more about it and it's like, yeah, maybe those were some bad moments in my life, but without those mistakes and those flaws, I would not have grown up and become the person that I am now.
Oh yeah. So what about the way that you are now do you value?
Wow, that's a really good question. I like to think that I'm more in tune with how I'm feeling every day and how I'm viewing life. Yeah.
What about the fact that you put out an album?
Oh, that's crazy to me. Like when I first started playing music, it was all that it was never on the table for me in the sense that I never thought it was going to happen or that I would eventually get to that point. I posted about this recently. I'm a big fan of, do you know the Foo Fighters?
I mean, I know them, but I
Okay.
can't say I've listened to them very much.
Sure. I'm a huge Foo Fighters shirt. I'm a big Foo Fighters fan. And the big reason for that is their frontman, Dave Grohl. He was also a drummer in Nirvana and he ended up forming the Foo Fighters and playing instruments on his own. So that's kind of like a direct, oh, like, wow, he did that. I could do that sort of thing.
Mm.
When he got inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with Nirvana, one of the things he said was that when he saw his heroes, the key mindset change for him that kind of propelled his whole career was looking at those people and not saying, oh man, I could never do that. But instead it's saying, oh man, I'm going to do exactly that.
I mean, I'm immediately just reminded of Jesus. Jesus like was so good, so then you can aspire to be like that. If someone else was able to do it, then like I can do it.
Yeah, exactly. If that's where our trajectory is going, we're gonna land somewhere. Like the whole like shoot for the moon, land among the stars kind of idea.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Totally. This has been great so far, actually. I'm having a great time. I
Yeah, me
feel like
too.
I had no idea that our stories were going to be so similar. Like we both
Mhm.
do music and computer science,
Right.
and both of our music pertains to time.
Mhm.
You mentioned that your album has something to do with time. What's it called again? AJ John.
Till the end of time.
Till the end of time.
Till the end
Right,
of
right,
time.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And the album I'm working on, which is going to be releasing later this year, is called Now and Later. A lot of the songs like I made as freestyles.
Mhm.
And then when you're freestyling, it's like being in the now. And you're just like totally like it's like meditation in a way, and mindfulness, and just
Mhm.
freestyling in the
Yeah.
now. And then but the album gets created later.
Right.
And then when I go back through the same songs, I can like make changes to it and like make it sound better, and like
Yeah.
listen to what I was going for and then just like do that even better. Because when I'm mixing it, I'm much better than I was before. And that's why my mixtape was called Better Than Before,
Mhm.
which dropped earlier this year. And it's like
Sweet.
kind of the same concept. So the album is like playing off the same time based
Mhm.
concept thing.
Okay. What's your inspiration? What's your process behind coming up with lyrics and words to say?
Yes. The words that I say are like constantly changing. So I do a lot of freestyling. And the way
Mhm.
that I look at freestyling is like just like idea generation, just like lots and lots and lots of ideas. And then the
Yeah.
more that I like do that with my body and brain and mouth, um, then I'm able to like pick out like what are the best ideas from like everything that has been said.
Mhm.
And so when I was like first starting like to learn how to freestyle, I would freestyle for like 30 minutes. And then I would just listen back and then like try to pick out like, okay, that's trash, 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 trash. Oh, okay, that's an interesting thing that I just said.
Uh-huh.
And then I just like, commit it to memory. And then it just gets like better and better over time as I go back to those same ideas and flows and words. Um, and when I'm actually making songs, um, the process is like almost always different.
Mhm.
I write songs in all different kinds of ways. One of them is like having a beat and then just playing like the first four bars and then like rapping something there and then saying like, okay, well, what comes next? And then I'll just record. So just like without writing anything down, just like saying it.
Mhm.
Um, I also write a lot of stuff in my notes. That's what I started doing. Like when I was younger, first getting started in music, I would
Mhm.
write stuff in my notes like all the time. And I found that like I didn't actually use them very often,
Mhm.
but sometimes I did, and when I did, it was definitely worth it.
Yeah.
Like I would just find like the perfect line, and then I would just like search speak by keywords,
Mhm.
and then that would like I would just plug it into the song. Yeah, and those are some ways. What about you?
Yeah. The notes thing is so huge for me. It's like as soon as I come up with an idea, I've got to put it somewhere so that I don't forget it. Yeah, like you said as well, some of these have been ideas that you sit on for a while and you kind of sort through them. Oh, that's not good. That's no good. But that guy right there, that right there is a gem. And you
Hmm.
kind of you kind of find the needle in the haystack and work with that and then grow that and develop that until that's its own song.
Yeah. What do you start with? Because you make all the instruments for all of your songs. Is that
Hmm. That's correct.
and so do you like make a beat or like an instrumental and then add lyrics? Or do you ever like have lyrics before adding the other layers?
I think I've only had lyrics to start with maybe once. I think every other song I've written is almost always started with music. And that's really because writing lyrics is that was the sort of the thing that came last. And that was the last thing I realized, like, oh, I got to work on this too. Like, it's not just
Mm,
about like having good music. I got to make sure that it means something positive and something good.
yeah.
So I almost always start with music. It's usually a guitar riff or a drum beat or some sort of idea. And then I kind of work around that. And after that, I can go one of two ways. Either I've written an entire song with even a melody line, but I have no idea what to say, or I sort of write different sections, and then as I write words, I sort of put the music underneath those words and sort of figure it out from there.
I
Mhm.
see. So the words stay where they are and you rearrange where the music is, or you move the lyrics to be in the right place.
I think it can go both ways, I'd say.
That leads me to something that I'm wondering is like, how do you think about the arrangements of your songs?
Yeah. So this is one of those things we're always trying to come up with something new and something different. And yet you can almost always figure out what are like your tendencies as far as arranging and what you like. For me, I almost always start with some sort of like verse, chorus sort of thing with a bridge, which is very, very typical and very, very bare bones.
Hmm.
But the way that I sort of try to make it my own thing is that maybe a chorus will be instrumental instead, or maybe I'll have an instrumental break here that wasn't there before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense. So a lot of the people that I've talked to have been people that like make their whole songs from scratch.
Hmm.
But they're primarily like making like rap music, I guess,
Hmm.
or but it's definitely like more electronic and
Sure.
whereas you play like rock using instruments. Have you ever listened to rap music before?
Not extensively. I pretty much have always been mostly into rock music. That said, I've been listening to a lot of Anderson .Paak lately. That
Mm.
guy is so talented. And I think the reason I kind of gravitate towards it is because I see him playing drums and he's got a band and they're all making music in real time. I don't know much about rap, so I couldn't really say what other people think, but to me at least, he's rapping really, really well on top of all that.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
definitely. Anderson .Paak is one of the best artists out there for sure.
Hmm.
And have you seen him like his like Tiny Desk concert on
I
YouTube?
did. That was epic.
Yeah, yeah, that's so good. Damn, I should watch it again. I don't even remember at all what happened, so I would
Hmm.
watch it and as if it's the first time. So that's exciting. I'm gonna do that.
Yeah.
And so I just have a couple more questions.
Sure.
If if I wanted to check out the Foo Fighters, I like listening to albums. Is there one in particular from the Foo Fighters that I should listen to?
Yeah. So I'm gonna give you two, and you can sort of pick between these two. The best album that they've ever made is The Color and the Shape. They wrote that album and made that album during a time of a lot of pressure in their lives. They were going through divorces and some band members left. They lost two band members over that album. So, and I think it kind of shows on that record. Their third record, on the other hand, was sort of their time of like, shoot, we've gone through all this stuff. Let's sort of like, let's make music fun again and let's make it lively. And I think that shows in the third record, which is called There Is Nothing Left to Lose.
That reminds me a lot of a rapper called Logic. He dropped an album a while ago, like 8 years ago, called Under Pressure.
Yeah.
And then like 2 days ago, he dropped an album called No Pressure,
Ooh.
which is like how you just described those two albums.
Exactly. Yeah. I love the whole full circle thing in music. It's so cool to me.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm wondering if people haven't heard your music before, what's the one song of your music that people should listen to first?
First, for that, I would probably say Forward. I've got some tracks on there that are heavy metal inspired and have like weird time signature changes and stuff like that. And they're very loud and aggressive. And then I've got like piano ballads. And I think Forward sits right in the center.
Should we listen to it right now?
Sure. Yeah. That'd be great.
Okay. Right here. Really low on YouTube. How's that?
Oh, that's perfect. Yeah.
I see you watching this video, and it's all you, and then you watching.
Yeah, making this video is a ton of fun.
Each time that we remember this makes our hearts ache, but we will stand strong.
hair was so like.
Did you film this all in one day?
Yeah, we had to. Ideally, I would have done it over a couple days, but we had a lot of problems with like when you're outside in the sun constantly changes.
Oh, so you needed the lighting to look right.
Exactly. And even in one day, there's like if you want to overanalyze it, you'll see a couple of imperfections with the lighting. But we had to do it the same day to get it as consistent as possible.
Oh, trading places.
Yeah.
What a move. What? How is the guitarist playing drums just as well as the drummer was? The guitar solo improvised?
It was when I first wrote it, yeah. It was just me sort of figuring out what sound good here, and then I eventually settled on the solo.
Oh, did you have like several you did several and then pick?
Yeah, exactly. I think this is one of the earlier ones I did though. Thanks, man. I haven't seen that in a while.
That was cool. How did that feel watching me watch that?
It felt good. I haven't actually seen anyone like react to it in real time, and the whole trade-off thing, like that's kind of the moment we're building up towards. So yeah, seeing someone react
what do
to
you mean?
that. Oh, the moment. So the whole video was kind of like, we wanted sort of two wow factors in this. The first one being like, oh, they're all like playing together in like the same space. And the second wow factor is he's trading instruments with himself.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you could have even traded more.
Probably, honestly, yeah, I could have. So that actually, based on a true story, if you will. So the first time I ever played the song live was with my band B3W in high school. I kind of wanted to capture the feel of us, like the three of us playing, and that was a three-piece. So I recorded this as a three-piece in the same arrangement that we had played. And when we first played that song live, when it got to that like solo instrumental guitar part, which was written by my buddy Shlok, shout out to him, we did a thing where I was playing bass and then our drummer also played bass. So then we swapped places during the guitar thing. And that was like one of the greatest moments of probably high school for me.
Yeah. Dang, that's awesome.
Yeah. So I wanted to kind of bring that
people there to
out.
see it?
People were there to see it. People were like sort of lukewarm about how they felt about rock music in high school. They're like, it's all right, but it's not really our thing. So the crowd was pretty silent throughout the whole thing. But once we got to that part, like applause erupted.
Nice. Yeah, that's so cool. I mean, I don't know if you noticed, that's kind of similar to me, like watching that video. I was like silently watching it, and then that part came up, and I was like, oh, hey, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I wanted. And I mean, I don't expect everyone to just like watch the video and just be like, wow, throughout the whole video. I feel it would honestly be kind of weird for me if you were. But yeah,
Totally.
but that part there, I wanted it to be rewarding, something that people can remember.
Nice.
for them
That's
too.
awesome. I just remembered a question that I wanted to ask earlier. So you mentioned twice in your artist story that you like did something low fidelity, and then your parents like bought you drums, and then after playing with the pans, and then doing like you did the same thing with guitar and then getting a guitar. Have you seen that happen in other places in your life?
That's interesting. I'd have to think of a couple, but I would be hard pressed to say that that has never happened anywhere else. I always try to look back on and remember where I started, not just like in music, but sort of as a kid. And it sort of keeps it's a good reality check. Like, you don't need to have lots of possessions or lots of money or lots of anything just to live a good life. Or in this case specifically to like create good music. So I guess my whole life story has kind of been that in a certain way.
Totally.
Yeah, interesting you picked
Awesome.
up on that twice. I had no idea.
Yeah, cool. Well, I feel like that's a pretty good place to end. I really appreciate you joining me and talking. This has been awesome.
Yeah, thanks so much for checking out the music, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, totally. And there would be more opportunities in the future if you're interested for like doing this more times.
Yeah.
Sweet. Awesome. Thank you so much. And I mean, I'm going to end the recording, but we can keep talking for a little bit.
Focus on love. Look what's in focus. Aim for above, cause the ceiling is bogus. Focus on love. Look what's in focus. Aim for above, because the ceiling's bogus. Focus on love. Look what's in focus. Aim for above, cause the ceiling is bogus. I wanna lay down a never-ending road. We never go to